this next mental exercise, you'll learn two new techniques. The first is a new way of entering level, an additional way from what you've already learned, and it allows you to enter a very, very deep level of mind also. The second technique is a first aid technique that you can use whenever you're hurt, whenever you have an injury, whenever you need to accelerate the healing process. Let's talk about entering level. Thus far, you've learned a number of ways to enter level. We have our standard 3-to-1 method for entering level. You have your three fingers technique. And so far, you have a couple of ways of knowing that you're really at your level. Remember what we talked about with the long relaxation exercise, that when you use the long relaxation exercise and you relax your body physically and relax your mind, then you can be assured that your brain has lowered to the 10-cycle frequency and that you're functioning in an alpha state. Another way that you can tell that you're functioning in alpha is when you apply the techniques. If you're successful, if you get successful results, then you know that you're at alpha. So you've got those two ways of knowing. Well, with this new way of entering level that we call hand levitation, this is another way of really being assured that you are at your level. Hand levitation guarantees that you'll enter deep levels of mind, low frequencies, all the way into the theta brainwave level. And built into the technique is a feedback mechanism that lets you know for sure that you've entered your level. Now, entering level with hand levitation is very simple, although it may take you a few minutes to do it in the beginning. This technique was originally developed by a hypnotist named Milton Erickson so that his patients could take themselves to deep level and relieve him of having to spend the time getting started with them. He would allow them to use this until they had achieved a certain depth, and he would pick it up from there and continue. Now, José Silva modified this technique to suit our purposes. It's a similar technique, but it's slightly different because our purposes are different than those of the hypnotist. Here's how it works. You start the exercise sitting upright in a chair with both hands resting on your lap, palms down. Now, for a while here, we've been allowing you to take any position that's comfortable to go to your level, as long as you're not going to sleep, as long as you're able to function well. But you do want to be able to function when you're sitting up, so do remember from time to time, practice in various ways, in various positions, so that you'll have the ability to go to level whenever you desire, that you don't have to be lying down or stretched out in a recliner or some other special thing to get to level. This is a dynamic system that we want to have available to us at all times. Now, for this technique, you will be sitting upright in a chair, hands in your lap, palms down. Now, we start off with your stronger hand, your dominant hand. If you're right-handed, that would be your right hand. Left-handed, that would be your left hand. Take your dominant hand, your stronger hand, and you stare at that stronger hand. Now, your goal here is to use your imagination to cause your hand to rise from your lap all by itself. It feels like it's doing it on its own. In other words, you might say that you're doing it at a subconscious level using your imagination. You imagine it rising up out of your lap, getting higher and higher, all the way up until the back of your hand touches your face without any conscious effort on your part. Your subconscious, which you have already converted into an inner conscious level, will cause your hand to rise at the direction of your imagination. Now, when your hand comes up all by itself, this confirms for you that you are at your level. It confirms that you've lowered your brain frequencies all the way to 5 cycles theta, a deep theta level. Because your hand's not going to come up by itself because you want it to at beta. For that, you have to do it consciously. At beta, you do it consciously. At alpha, you do it consciously. At theta, your subconscious will take over, and it'll come up by the use of your imagination. Now, we'll program this technique in during the next conditioning cycle. Here's how we'll do it. We'll program the procedure that you will use. We're not going to do it for real during this conditioning cycle. You'll do it for real when you practice on your own, but we'll program in the procedure that you'll use, and you'll go through the motions as if you were actually doing it for real. In other words, you'll consciously help your hand to rise during this conditioning cycle. Then, after we've programmed it at level in this manner, you can practice on your own until your hand comes up all by itself. Now, concentrating on a single thing is one of the most common ways of getting into a meditative state. You know how yogis may concentrate on their breath or focus on a candle flame or contemplate their navel? Anything that you do like that, a word or a sound, a mantra like the word Om or something like that. You could use the word Coca-Cola if you wanted to. Concentrating on a single thing will help you to enter a meditative state, will lower the brain frequency. So when you concentrate totally on your hand, exclude everything else, just let other thoughts go and continue to concentrate on your hand and concentrate on it rising and coming up by itself, your brain, which is going to be totally bored by now, your brain will slow down all the way to theta, to 5 cycles per second. Your concentration actually causes you to enter your level. When your hand comes up by itself, this confirms that you have actually entered your level, the theta level. Now remember, during this conditioning cycle, you may have to raise your hand consciously. This is what I want you to do, to bring it up consciously so that you keep pace with the instructions that I'll be giving you. I'll count to you from 10 to 1 very slowly and give you instructions on every number. I'll give you instructions and tell you what I want you to do. So remember, during this conditioning cycle, do not wait for your hand to come up by itself. Follow my instructions, even if you have to raise your hand yourself. When I begin to count, I'll say that while you are staring at your hand, you will cause your hand to feel sensitive, very sensitive. Then you will slowly cause one finger to move, and then cause your fingers to separate from one another, and at the same time cause your hand to rise from your lap. So maybe you cause a finger to kind of twitch or shake a little bit, something like that. Your fingers to kind of spread apart and your hand to come up out of your lap. Sometimes to help it get it started, some people may imagine that there's a balloon under their hand and the balloon is filling with air, the imaginary balloon, so the hand begins to come up. At any rate, you make it happen and cause it to happen. Then later, when you practice on your own, use your imagination and cause it to happen due to imagination. Now I'll continue to count downwards towards 1. On each number, I'll give you additional instructions. So you pace yourself so that when I reach the count of 1, your hand will be up to your face. Talk about your hand being lighter and lighter, getting higher and higher, moving closer and closer to your face. And when I get to the count of 5, we're going from 10 to 1, right? So count of 5 is halfway. So your hand should be about halfway at the midpoint between your face and your lap. If it's not, raise it on up to that level. Now, we'll continue to talk about it getting lighter and closer to your face, and that as you get to your face, you'll begin to enter the basic plane level, and you will enter the basic plane level. And at the count of 1, you'll close your eyes, your hand will touch your face, you'll close your eyes when your hand touches your face, you'll take a deep breath, and while exhaling, you will allow your hand to return to its resting position on your lap. Then we'll go through the routine deepening, the deepening cycles of various statements that we use and so forth. When it comes time to program new information, we will program that you have learned how to enter level 1 with the hand levitation method, and that you may use hand levitation to enter deeper, healthier programming levels. And I'll remind you that every time you practice hand levitation, you will enter deeper levels of mind. Now, after you've used the tape and gone through the motions and we've programmed it into your biocomputer, your brain, then later, when you have time, say when you have about 15 or 20 minutes, go somewhere by yourself where you won't be disturbed, where people won't come in and look and say, "What are you doing?" And you go through the motions and do it for real. That is, stare at your hand until it begins to come up all by itself. In the beginning, you might need to help it get started a little bit. You might need to help it come up all by itself. That's okay. Help it get started, and then it'll continue to rise on its own. Use your imagination. Desire it to happen. Will it to happen. Want it to happen. Now, why do we want to learn to enter the theta level with conscious awareness if all of our programming is done at alpha? Good question. Here's why. Because the problem that you desire to correct must be within reach. Your mind must be able to get the necessary information about the problem in order to correct it. If you've never entered the theta level with conscious awareness, then it's closed off to you. It's not within reach. Entering the theta level with conscious awareness opens it up for you and brings it within reach. Another good reason to practice entering the theta level, remember we spoke earlier, that your brain will tend to speed up when you become mentally active and begin to analyze problems. So if you practice going to 5 cycles theta when you enter your level, if you make this your base, then it will be very easy to remain on 10 cycles alpha. Now, what kind of problems might be rooted at theta? Well, those things that we talked about and called limiting belief systems, they could be rooted at theta. Why is that? Well, children function at much lower brain frequencies than adults. In fact, there's kind of a correlation between the child's age and the brain frequency that they're functioning at. For instance, a 5-year-old child, their overall predominant brain frequency will be 5 cycles per second. Oh, when they focus their eyes, it'll be higher, of course. But much of the time, their functioning will be 5 cycles per second. The parts of the brain associated with theta will be the active parts where their consciousness is and where you'll be making strong impressions. Now, what can happen? Maybe a 5-year-old child is told that he's clumsy or that she's stupid, and the child simply accepts that. At that age, the child only reasons inductively, not deductively. The child does not analyze information. The child simply records that information on the brain cells. And that information is there and it stays there. Now, when these levels are within reach, then you can enter your level and use the mirror of the mind to program yourself to accomplish your goals. And if the problems, the limiting belief systems, the negative programming that was inserted there so many years ago, if they're rooted at theta, your mind can reach them and can correct the problems. You do not necessarily need to deal specifically with the problem. You may simply be able, it may be that all that you need to do is to program for what you desire today, and your mind will take care of whatever is necessary to correct the cause of the problem, provided that the cause of the problem is within reach. To keep it in reach, practice doing deep meditation. Deep meditation. Hand levitation is an excellent way. Deep relaxation with the long relaxation exercise is a slower way than hand levitation. It will also get you to those same levels. There's so many things that can cause problems. You know, our parents love us so much. They want to motivate us. They want to help us to do better in life. So they try to do that. They tell us things to motivate us. They may say that study hard and make good grades if you want to be successful in life. They equate the grades that we make in school with the amount of success that we can expect to have in life. This is to motivate us to do better. Well, you know how do they still grade on the bell curve? They did when I was in school. They have this bell curve where you got to have a few people right at the top who get the top grades, got a few people at the bottom that get the lowest grades, and most of us wound up somewhere in between, that great big average. That's why I call it a bell curve, that big hump in the middle where most people fit in. Well, what does that mean now? You get older, you grow up, and you've got that program deep, deep in the brain that equates the grades that you make with the amount of success that you have in life. So a few people are very successful, a few people are pretty much failures, and most of us wind up being average. Well, why do we have to be average? Is that necessary? Was Albert Einstein average? Well, as a student, he was. As a matter of fact, as a student, did you know that Einstein actually failed math? He had to have special help. Well, even as an adult, he had trouble with math. He had to hire a mathematician to help him work out the details, the mathematical details of the formulas that he was coming up with. But he certainly was a genius at coming up with those formulas. See, it's easy to get facts. It's easy to find people who can do that type of work. Einstein said imagination is more important than knowledge. You can get knowledge a lot of places. Imagination, that's something that's unique and that we really need to work with. So we don't need to limit ourselves in that manner. We can make the changes. You now have the tools that you can use, if you choose to change anything about your life. With Mirror of the Mind, we gave you a number of strategies that you can work with. You'll surely develop more on your own as you continue and as you practice. It's your choice now. Previously, you didn't have a choice. Now you have a choice. You can choose to change your past history, in a manner of speaking, and go ahead and be successful now. Wow, can you imagine the implications of that? You can neutralize the negative past programming so that new positive programs will work. Now, there's another reason for opening up the theta levels and bringing them within our reach, from alpha at least. Biological intelligence is rooted at theta. Human intelligence is rooted at alpha, 10 cycles. Biological intelligence of our body at 5 cycles theta. Psychological health problems are rooted at 10 cycles. That's why we can correct them at alpha. That's probably 80% or more of the problems. But there are other health problems that are rooted at theta, where biological intelligence resides. That's why hypnotists are able to use the 5 cycles theta level to prepare patients to have teeth pulled and even to have surgery without the use of chemical anesthetics. Before chemical anesthetics came on the scene about 150 years ago, they were beginning to use hypnosis to anesthetize patients and prepare them for surgery. See, it's like we're going back on the scale of brain evolution to the time in our development when we did not have sensory nerves. We had a reptilian brain, the very most fundamental parts of the brain, but did not yet have the sensory nerve. So if we can get consciousness back to that level, we do not experience pain. Now you can learn with practice to influence biological intelligence. Your body knows how to heal itself. Did you realize that? Think about that. When you cut your finger, your body knows how to cause the cells to grow back together again. Medical science is not quite sure exactly what those cells are doing to come together again. Your body does it automatically. Now, we're not saying that you never need a doctor, just the contrary. We always advise you to work under medical supervision. When you're working in health areas, let your doctor guide you. You're working in education, let your teachers guide you. You want spiritual and religious development, work with your ministers, your rabbi, your priest. Now, if you have a cut on your finger and it's a big cut, the doctor can sew it up so that there won't be a scar. Can sew it up so the skin will be close enough together that the body can go ahead and cause the cells to knit back together. You can use antiseptics to keep it from getting infected. The actual healing is done by your own body. The doctors are important. They're even vital to the healing process because they can remove any interference to healing so that nature can take its course. Doctors create an environment that makes it easier for the body to heal. They can keep you alive long enough for the healing to take place. And now, you have the ability to help your doctor help you heal your body. There are many things that you can do to speed the healing process besides the frequent advice from doctors to take an aspirin, get plenty of rest, and call me in the morning. After all, you get plenty of rest, that's probably at alpha. Functioning at alpha will help you speed the healing process. How does your body know how to heal itself? Well, instructions were programmed into your biocomputer, your brain, by whoever originally created and programmed it, by higher intelligence, by the Creator. Those instructions are part of your biological intelligence. They're automatic, but it's possible at the correct level to change those instructions, to take them off of automatic and assume manual control. How does this work? Well, José Silva found during his research that a subject's healing mechanism can be fooled during hypnosis. He says that you can tell the subject that they're going to be touched with a red-hot piece of metal. Then you touch them with the eraser of an ordinary pencil, for instance. Nothing hot about it, just standard room temperature. But their body will respond as if that eraser on the pencil were a red-hot iron. The skin will turn red, and sometimes a real blister forms. Somehow, the hypnotist and the subject have influenced the body's healing mechanism to go into action, to form a bucket brigade and rush water to the fire to put out the fire. Even though there's no fire, there's really no need for it. Well, you can also learn to alter your perception of pain. Pain is a message that there's a problem. After you receive the message, there's no need to keep the messenger. We do sometimes need pain to alert us that there's a problem. But after that, why keep it? Well, here's how we program glove anesthesia. Glove anesthesia is used to reduce pain or stop pain, and can also often stop bleeding and hemorrhaging, and can help speed the healing process. Now, you've already gone to level with hand levitation. We've gone through the deepening exercises, the various statements, beneficial statements, rapport statements, and so forth. Now, when you first get ready to go to level, and you get your chair to sit in, do this for me. Make sure that on each side of your chair, there's enough room so that you can drop your arm down, your left arm to the left side of your chair, the right arm to the right side of your chair, and there'll be enough room to drop your arm down into an imaginary bucket of water. Okay? So If you got something real close to the chair, move it over. On a sofa, it doesn't work too well because the sofa's too wide to drop your arms off each side. Okay? Here's how the conditioning cycle goes. First, when we get to the new material and we've impressed about the hand levitation, then I'll tell you that glove anesthesia is a formula-type technique that you can practice to develop control of physiological pain and, in many cases, control of bleeding and hemorrhaging. Now, glove anesthesia is a development of a feeling that is different from the normal. It's usually developed on the less strong of the two hands. In other words, you started with your stronger hand for the hand levitation, so it's the other hand that will develop the glove anesthesia on. Now, this development of glove anesthesia, you could detect it as a cool or a cold feeling, or any number of other feelings. It could be a feeling such as a tingling sensation on your hand, a vibration. Maybe it'll feel as though your hand is asleep, or as though you have a leather glove on your hand, as though your hand is made of wood. It may feel as though you have no hand. Any feeling at all other than the normal, we'll consider that to be glove anesthesia, and it will work for you. Now we will develop the glove anesthesia during this conditioning. You can reinforce it later when you practice on your own, but you will have it. It will be programmed in. So use your imagination all through this exercise. I'll say in a moment I'm going to count from 1 to 3, and at that moment you'll place your stronger hand into an imaginary container of hot water standing by your side. The water's hot. You can stand the temperature. Say 1, 2, 3. Now place your hand into the imaginary container of hot water by your side. Now I ask you to bring back a memory when you've had your hand in hot water before. Do you recall some time when you had your hand in hot water? I recall when I'm washing dishes. Then I'll ask you to lift your hand out of the hot water and let it rest on your lap again. Then I'll count to 3 and ask you to place your other hand into a container of ice water with cracked ice standing by your side. Now with that, I want you to recall a time when you had your hand in ice water and cracked ice. Maybe you're at a picnic and you're fishing around in a cooler to get out a drink, a soda, a beer or something. You can feel the ice water. You can feel the cracked ice between your fingers and bumping into your hand. Can you imagine that? And imagine how cold it is? Now, while your hand is getting colder and colder every second, we want to leave it there for a while to get very cold, so we'll take advantage of that time to review the first 10 memory pegs, which helps you to improve your visualization and imagination by using the mental screen. Now, after we run through the memory pegs, I'll ask you to keep your eyes closed, to lift your hand out of the ice water and hold it over and behind your head, keeping your hand from touching your head. And I'll ask you to let your hand dry and get colder in this position, and I'll tell you when to keep it down. You'll continue to keep your eyes closed. Now, it's got to feel colder. Come on, when it's hanging down by your side, a lot of blood is flowing into your hand. When you're holding it up over and behind your head, it's got to feel colder. Remember, what you're looking for is any feeling other than normal, anything at all. So it can feel colder, it can be the tingling, it can be a vibration, whatever it is. Use your imagination. This is the glove anesthesia. So while you're holding it up there and allowing it to get colder and colder, I'll give you some instructions. I'll say that as soon as you learn to develop glove anesthesia, and after testing it and becoming satisfied with the results, start practicing the transferring of this anesthesia to other parts of the body. First thing, you can practice transferring the anesthesia from the anesthetized hand to the other hand by placing the anesthetized hand over the other hand for a few seconds, then test the other hand for anesthesia. So as you manage to reduce the sensation and the feeling in one hand, then use that to anesthetize the other hand and bring about the same effect there. When this has become effective, practice transferring the anesthesia from either hand to any other part of the body. So now you can use either hand and place that hand over the part of the body that you want to anesthetize and hold it in that position for a few seconds. Now finally, you can learn by practicing to program yourself so that all you need to do is concentrate on any discomfort and mentally say the word gone, and the discomfort will be gone. Then I'll ask you to bring your hand down, place it on your lap, test it for coldness and insensibility with your other hand. Test it. Does it feel different when you touch it? Do you still have full sensation there? Is there something different? If you pinch it a little bit, what does it feel like? You may get a very slight effect, or you may get a fairly significant effect. Different people respond different ways. Then I will ask you to remove all abnormal feeling from your hand by rubbing it 3 times with your other hand, from the wrist towards the fingers, bringing all feeling back to normal. It's kind of like you're peeling a glove off your hand. You don't want to leave it anesthetized because then you might hurt yourself and not realize it. So you'll do that so that your hand ends up feeling the same way it did at the beginning of the exercise. Now remember, anytime you want to correct health problems, controls are applied under a doctor's supervision. Glove anesthesia is an outstanding first aid kit that'll be with you all the time. If you're injured, just place your anesthetized hand over the injured area and expect the pain to stop. It will decrease and stop. Bleeding will often stop, and generally you'll heal more quickly. Remember what we said, any feeling other than the normal will be considered to be glove anesthesia. There was a man in Florida, a retired gentleman, who had taken the course, and he didn't need the glove anesthesia until one night he happened to be in a convenience store at the wrong time. Somebody came in and robbed the store, tied up the 2 or 3 customers that were there, tied up the clerk, had them all sitting on the floor, went into the cash register and only found about $7 in the cash register, so he got really angry. He got so mad he went around and started demanding something from people, and maybe he was high on something, and he stabbed this gentleman in the chest with a knife. In fact, they determined that there was a very deep cut, and actually cut an artery, as I understand. Well, he had his hands tied behind his back. How could he use his glove anesthesia? You know, the natural thing is to just grab any wounded part of the body. We have many stories of graduates who hurt themselves. They put their hand where the pain was, and the pain went away. And they thought, gee, why did that happen? Then they remembered that they had programmed glove anesthesia. It worked even when they weren't expecting it to, even when they didn't think about it. Well, he thought about his glove anesthesia because he'd been stabbed in the chest. Severe stab wound, deep stab wound. He didn't know what to do. He remembered, they said, you can say the word gone, and the pain will be gone. So he began to mentally say, gone, 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 gone. And the pain reduced. He didn't bleed too much. Eventually, help came, help arrived. The robber left, and someone else came in. They called for help. Paramedics came. They rushed him to the hospital. They took care of all the people who were there who were hurt. He got to the hospital. They took care of the wound, and he said that the doctors were absolutely amazed that he had had so little bleeding. A man of his age, wounded like that, should have bled to death. They didn't understand why there was so little bleeding. It really worked, even though that was the first time that he ever used it. Now, that's the wonderful thing about glove anesthesia. Maybe you don't really feel the hand to be particularly anesthetized or cold when you go through the exercise. Even when you practice later, you may not sense too much of a difference on your hand. But once you really need it, when it's the real thing, then guess what? It'll be there for you and it'll work for you. So, these are 2 outstanding techniques for you to practice. When you become accustomed to entering the theta level, it'll be an easy matter to get to alpha anytime you desire. And you want to be able to, don't you? There may be times that you can't find some quiet, peaceful, restful place to get to level, but you got problems you want to solve, so you want to do it right away. I did that one Christmas. It was Christmas Eve, and I was out doing my Christmas shopping. Well, I never claimed to be that efficient. I needed a gift for my sister. What was I going to buy? So I sat out on a bench at the edge of the parking lot in a busy shopping center, went to my level, and at Alpha, we have access to more information. Guess what? I came up with an idea, I found the gift, and it turned out to be a very good gift for her. She liked it a lot. Thank goodness for being able to get to level, and thank goodness for being able to do it any time that we need to. Now, these are additional tools that you can use. As always, the choice is yours. You can choose to sit around and watch television, or you can choose to practice. If you are serious about choosing success, you know what to do. And remember, you only have to make one choice at a time. You can do whatever you want to do tomorrow. So what are you going to do today? You're going to go through this exercise, then you're going to make the one choice and choose success and practice hand levitation and develop that. It's a terrific way to get to level. It's a terrific way to help you develop yourself. Now, the conditioning, it's pretty long one. It runs about 26 minutes. Remember to do this one in a sitting position, sitting in a chair, and be sure to leave room on each side of your chair for the imaginary buckets of hot and cold water. Follow the instructions. Raise your hand and arm when I tell you to, even if you have to do it yourself, consciously. That way, when you go to practice on your own later, they'll come up all by themselves.